In my past life, I shielded my husband from an arrow and recuperated for 4 years. When I returned, I found that there was a new person in my family. I was then harmed by my husband's family. After being a ghost for 20 years and witnessing their end, I was reborn on my way back to my husband's home. I'm not going home just yet. I wish to go to the palace and visit the Empress Dowager. I said. My name is Zhao Wenzhi, the last survivor of the Shu Prince's line. My father died fighting on the battlefield when I was but 9 years old. Moved by my orphaned plight, the Empress Dowager took me into the palace to raise. I married at 16 and gave birth to a pair of dragon and phoenix twins at 18. Back then, my husband Wei Xu and I were deeply devoted to each other. When our children turned 6, I accompanied Wei Xu on a hunting trip. The third prince drew his bow and aimed an arrow straight at him. His gesture half jest, half deadly intent. Without a second thought, I stepped forward and took the arrow myself. The wound severely damaged my internal organs. I seized this chance to pour out my grievances before the emperor and the Empress Dowager. And the third prince was severely punished as a result. My husband's family sided with the second prince. My injury stirred widespread resentment against the third prince among the court officials and my father's former subordinates. Clearing obstacles for the second prince's path to the crown, Wei Xu said to me, "Aji, your wound will not heal easily. The third prince bears a grudge against us. Let us use this opportunity to bring him down for good." I once believed my fate was bound inseparably to his. That we shared weal and woe alike. For the sake of their grand schemes, I had to leave the capital to recover. Staying away for 3 to 5 years. This would give the court and the second prince ample grounds to impeach the third prince. And so I departed for the remote manor in the south. Yet after the second prince was named crown prince, Wei Xu never sent anyone to fetch me home in haste. A bad premonition crept over me. When I finally returned, I found my place in this household had long been stolen by another. Reborn once more. I headed first for the palace to see the Empress Dowager, the only soul in this world who had ever truly cared for me. I have fully recovered, I told her. The Empress Dowager clasped my hand. It is good to have you back. Come often to keep me company. Lest I worry over you. I nodded in assent. Before I left, I slipped the golden bracelet from my wrist and hid it beneath the ink-patterned chair cushion. It was a relic left by my birth mother, placed on my wrist by the Empress Dowager herself. She knew how precious this trinket was to me. I arrived at the Duke of Song's mansion in the late afternoon. The sun slanted westward, its golden rays filtering through the treetops and casting dappled shadows on the ground. My husband, my children and my mother-in-law stood together, all wearing looks of utter surprise. Behind them stood a young woman dressed in pale lotus-pink robes, gentle and charming. "Aji, why have you returned so suddenly? The steward never sent word ahead of your arrival." My mother-in-law stepped forward and took my hand. I smiled faintly. "This is my home. I need no tedious formalities. Do I, mother?" An awkward smile crossed her face. Wei Xu walked up to ask about my journey. And my 10-year-old twin children came forward to greet me. Noticing my gaze lingering on the woman in pink, my mother-in-law quickly introduced her. "You have not met her. This is Lan Yang. I invited her to be Song's embroidery tutor. Do Fenglan greets her Grace the Duchess." The woman curtsied gracefully. She was a distant niece of my mother-in-law, who had come to seek shelter here after her husband passed away. Her embroidery and cooking skills were peerless. And with these two talents, she had won over every member of my family. "Rise," I said, feigning warmth as I lightly helped her up. "Thank you for looking after Song while I was away." My daughter Wei Song spoke up at once. "Mother, you have no idea how kind Aunt Lan is." I stroked her hair softly. "You can tell me all about it later." Song, unlike in my past life, I did not let my displeasure show the moment I sensed the whole family favored Do Fenglan, which had soured the atmosphere on my first night back then. Instead, I chatted amiably with them all and stayed for the evening meal. After dinner, Wei Xu looked visibly restless. "I have traveled far and am weary. I wish to rest early. Would you mind staying in the outer study for the night, my Lord Duke?" I took the initiative to speak. I knew full well he had already shared a bed with Do Fenglan, more than keeping me company. He longed to comfort her that night. Relief flashed across his face. Rest well, Aji. I slept soundly through the night. The next morning, I chose my moment to stir up trouble. Do Fenglan appeared again at breakfast, standing beside my mother-in-law and helping to serve the dishes. As soon as we finished eating, a manservant from the gate announced that a palace maid had arrived. It was at this exact moment that I smashed my bowl to the floor. All eyes turned to me in shock. My mother-in-law and Wei Xu frowned. Confused. I am the duchess of this household. If you intend to take a concubine for the duke, why was I never consulted? If mother holds no regard for me as her daughter-in-law, you might as well send me a letter of divorce and send me away. I spoke loudly for all to hear. The crowd was stunned. My children looked embarrassed. My son Wei Chuang, acting far older than his years, chided me. Mother, to smash crockery before the duke and grandmother, what proper conduct is this? My daughter stared at me in disbelief. Mother, have you listened to idle gossip? You have misunderstood Aunt Lan. My mother-in-law's face turned livid with anger. Aji, you are far too willful. Did the Empress Dowager teach you such manners? Only Wei Xu saw through my pretense. He stepped forward and spoke softly. Aji, you must be unsettled after coming home and slept poorly. A broken bowl is nothing to make a fuss over. He signaled to the servants, then shot meaningful glances at my mother-in-law and Do Fenglan. Yet the two women were not so quick-witted. When did I ever speak of taking a concubine? I asked. Everyone fell silent, caught red-handed. The whole household knew of Wei Xu's affair with Do Fenglan, even my own children. Just then, Nanny Zhou, sent by the Empress Dowager, stepped into the hall. My people had waited at the gate and let her enter without delay. What is the meaning of this commotion? Nanny Zhou's expression turned stern. Princess, have you suffered some wrong? Tears welled up in my eyes at once. I had no idea another person now manages the household affairs. Last night, my bedding was damp, yet I could find no one to change it for me. I barely slept a wink. My hands grew unsteady at breakfast, and I dropped the bowl. The duke and grandmother think I am throwing a tantrum, yet I am truly wronged. I wept. Nanny Zhou swept her gaze over the assembled crowd. My mother-in-law quickly recovered her wits. It is all a misunderstanding. She forced a smile. I took an arrow to protect the duke and left to heal my wounds. I understand mother's health is frail, so I have no quarrel with someone lending a hand to run the household. But if a woman is to be his concubine, why keep it hidden from me and the world? When I returned home, I was completely in the dark. Had I not seen the household keys in her possession, I would have remained ignorant, treating her as a mere outsider. Now I am labeled a jealous shrew, and people will say the Empress Dowager failed to teach me proper virtue. Nanny, I am truly incompetent. I cried bitterly. Nanny Zhou's face darkened. My mother-in-law, Wei Xu and Do Fenglan looked utterly wretched. Whether Do Fenglan was officially a concubine or not, they were trapped in an impossible position. I did not press the matter further, with tears still streaming down my face. I left the mansion and went to the palace with Nanny Zhou. The Empress Dowager had sent Nanny Zhou early that morning with my golden bracelet, knowing I would worry over its loss. She had unwittingly borne witness to everything in my past life. My word alone had never been enough. Wei Xu was a skilled orator, adept at twisting the truth. Without the Empress Dowager's people to stand as witnesses, false accusations would have ruined my reputation across the capital. When I died, the whole city rejoiced, singing praises of Do Fenglan's kindness and loyalty, declaring her a perfect match for Wei Xu. Now it was Wei Xu who had to explain why his lawful wife had left home grievously wounded for his sake, only to return and find another woman ruling his household in her stead. Once we reached the palace, the Empress Dowager pulled me into her arms. She did not remind me that she had never approved of my choice of husband, as she had done long ago. She simply said, "If you have been wronged, stay here a few days longer. A daughter of the Zhao clan will never be trampled upon by the Wei family." I recalled how she had once urged me to seek a divorce in my past life. Back then, I had refused. To leave as a wife scorned and abandoned by her own husband and children was a humiliation I could not endure. I had insisted on fighting them to the bitter end, and in the end, I had lost my life. Only the Empress Dowager had wept for me when I died. I had once doubted her affection. She was a ruthless, decisive ruler. After all, I thought her kindness toward me was merely a ploy to pacify my father's former subordinates. But for 20 years as a ghost, I had watched her. Every time she spoke of me, tears would fall from her eyes. Even a cat raised for years stirs fond feelings, let alone a girl who had lived by her side. The Empress Dowager truly loved me. I asked for a divorce. As Princess Huayang, I had brought 108 dowry carriages when I married. The Empress Dowager had filled them with the finest treasures she could find. I intended to take every last piece of my property away with me. Naturally, the Wei family refused. My mother-in-law went to the palace to plead her case. Dou is merely a helpless orphan who sought refuge with us, not a concubine. Besides, refusing to let one's husband take a concubine and demanding a divorce will tarnish the princess's own reputation. A proper mistress ought to take the initiative to secure more heirs for her husband and the clan, by the rules of the age. My grounds for divorce seemed unreasonable. You speak the truth, mother. I lowered my eyes and pretended to reconsider. Wei Xu came to the palace to fetch me home. The Wei family sent Dou Fenglan away. Tension hung thick over the mansion after my return, and my mother-in-law fell ill from rage. Grandmother is sick. Mother, go cook some dishes for her. My son Wei Chuang ordered me. I do not know how to cook. I replied flatly. Aunt Lan always made delicious food that nursed grandmother back to health quickly. When I was ill, she stayed by my bedside too. Where were you, mother? He retorted. I smiled faintly. I took that arrow to further your father's ambitions, to frame the third prince for the crown prince's sake. If word had not spread that the third prince had wounded me and left my injuries incurable, how could your grandfather's old followers have turned away from him and sworn allegiance to the crown prince? My son fell silent. At 10 years old, he had received a proper education and understood court politics. In my past life, I had spared him the ugly truth of his father's greed for power. He had always blamed me for being jealous and intolerant. To him, it was only natural for noble lords to have multiple wives and concubines. Why could I not accept Dou Fenglan as a second wife? After all, compared to other nobles, he thought his father had been faithful enough. This life, I cared no longer what my son thought. I laid the truth bare. Do not hide behind lofty excuses. He snapped after a moment of stunned silence. If you doubt my words, go to the country manor. While grandmother pretends to pray at the temple, your father sneaks off to meet Aunt Lan in secret. I told him. My son turned and stormed out. My daughter was heartbroken, though far less confrontational. She looked at me tearfully. I promised the Empress Dowager a double-sided embroidered piece for her 50th birthday feast. I cannot finish it without Aunt Lan's guidance. Did she teach you, or do the work for you? I asked. She taught me. I will find you another embroidery master. Dou Fenglan is not the only person skilled at double-sided embroidery in this world. But this particular pattern is unique to her. Only this piece can truly delight the Empress Dowager. She insisted. You are my daughter. Even if you presented her with a scrap of plain cloth, she would be overjoyed. If you were not her favored child, not even the most exquisite embroidery would move her. Does the palace lack skilled embroiderers? My daughter burst into tears. Mother, you speak ill of Aunt Lan. I let out a soft laugh. You turn a blind eye when she elevates herself. Yet you call my honest words slander. My son was foolish. My daughter naive, just as I had once been. Our bond was broken, and I let it be. I patted the sleeves of my robe. Once the divorce was finalized, I would appoint trusted stewards to look after my children and set aside enough silver to support them until they came of age and married. I would fulfill my duty as their birth mother, but I would expect nothing more from them. When I left the mansion 4 years prior, the children had already turned 6 and were old enough to understand. I had left servants to care for them. Yet my mother-in-law had replaced every single one of my people during my absence. Her staff clashed with mine over power and interests. So she drove them all away. Little by little, she stole my children's affection from me. I no longer clung to what was lost. Such was our fate. And I would not force their hearts to return. I waited patiently for a just opportunity to finalize the divorce, an opportunity one knew would come soon. Just as it had in my past life. 3 months after my return to the Duke's mansion, on the first day of the 9th lunar month, my mother-in-law announced at dawn that she was going to a temple to pray. She did not ask me or the children to accompany her, only bidding Wei Xu to drive the carriage for her. Once they had left, I called my son and daughter to me. I am taking you somewhere. My daughter grew wary. Her grandmother had filled her head with lies, calling me mad and consumed by jealousy. My son spoke to me coldly. Where are we going? To pray at the temple. I smiled. Grandmother and father have just left. What scheme are you plotting now? I will not go. He refused outright. My daughter hesitated. Princess Anning will be joining us too. I thought you might like to meet her young son, the little prince. I hear you have long wished to learn spear fighting from him. I said to my son. Princess Anning was my elder cousin. Her son was a valiant young warrior whose spear skills had even defeated the top martial scholar of the empire. My son had always longed to befriend him. But while I was away, Princess Anning's household had kept their distance from the Wei family. Song. Would you like to see Princess Anning? She is greatly beloved by the Empress Dowager. I added to my daughter. The girl wavered, and after a moment's hesitation, my son nodded his agreement. We met up with Princess Anning and boarded her grand 8-horse carriage. My son lit up with joy when he met the young prince he admired. But as the carriage traveled on, it turned off the road to the temple and headed straight for the country manor instead. Princess Anning turned to me. Huayang, where are we bound? We will pass by one of my family's manors. I have a small matter to attend to here. I smiled and leaned against her affectionately. Tell me what troubles you, dear cousin. She stroked my hair gently. My daughter looked on with envy at our close bond, while my son stared at me in disbelief. Clearly, Wei Xu and Do Fenlong had told him I had lost all standing in the imperial court. We alighted from the carriage and walked straight to a secluded courtyard. When the door opened, we found my mother-in-law holding Do Fenlong's hand, while Wei Xu stood beside them supporting the woman whose belly was now faintly swollen with child. Everyone present, save for me, was utterly stunned. I feigned shock and stepped forward. Mother, my Lord Duke, what is the meaning of this? I reached out to touch Do Fenlong's belly. Wei Xu instinctively moved to block me. I stumbled backward and fell to the ground on cue, with a cry of alarm. I pressed a shard of broken porcelain I had hidden in my sleeve into my palm, piercing my own hand. Princess Anning rushed to help me up. Duke of Song, how dare you assault your lawful wife before my eyes? Have you no regard for the emperor or the Empress Dowager? I fled outside, overcome with feigned distress. Princess Anning chased after me, while her son blocked Wei Xu from giving pursuit. Back in the carriage, blood dripped steadily from my wounded hand. I gritted my teeth and pulled the porcelain shard free, and fresh blood gushed from the wound. I have helped you today. You owe me a favor. Princess Anning said. I shall never forget your kindness, cousin, I replied. She sighed. If I were you, I would not choose divorce. I would fight them until one side breaks. To run away is to admit defeat. I gave a bitter smile. Any ordinary woman would think the same. To be betrayed, and to fight until the bitter end. But I had already died once. I only wished to live on. I could not bear the thought of the Empress Dowager weeping over me again, blaming herself for failing to stop me from marrying a worthless man. All her life, she had been bold and decisive, and I had become her only regret. In my past life, my death had brought sorrow to those who loved me, and joy to my enemies. I knew how this day would unfold. In my former life, I had also learned they would visit the pregnant Do Fenlong at the manor on this very day. I had followed them there, and when I tried to drag the guilty pair before the Empress Dowager, my mother-in-law had pretended to trip and cut her own hand on a porcelain shard. Wei Xu had accused me of attacking my mother-in-law, a crime punishable by law in this realm. He and my mother-in-law had gone to the palace to complain. offering to drop the charges if I ceased all troublemaking. Once again, the Empress Dowager had urged me to divorce, but I had refused. Blinded by rage and determined to fight, anger had clouded my judgment, and I had never stood a chance. This life. I had asked Princess Anning to stand with me and set this trap. I let my children witness the truth, and turned their own trick against them. For 2 months straight, censors flooded the court with memorials impeaching Wei Xu, charging him with keeping a secret mistress and harming his lawful wife, leaving my hand permanently injured. In my past life, Dou Fenglan had given birth to the child in hiding, and the baby was later brought into the mansion as an adopted son. She was never officially made a concubine, nor openly acknowledged as a mistress. She had waited until my death to marry Wei Xu properly. The law forbade a concubine or secret mistress from being elevated to the rank of lawful if to do so would land Wei Xu in prison. He and my mother-in-law had refused to formalize Dou Fenglan's statue. Not out of consideration for me, but to protect her own future. I had long since realized these people were never worth fighting for. After 2 months of relentless impeachment, the emperor finally grew weary and asked for my wishes. By then, I had moved out of the duke's mansion and taken up residence in the old Shu Prince's manor, which had been preserved along with its loyal servants. Wei Xu came to plead with me. Once handsome and elegant, he was now gaunt and haggard, his cheekbones protruding sharply. Ji, will you not end this quarrel? I will make Lan'er my official concubine and hand over her contract to you. Let us remain a family, he begged. Is this how you apologize? Whether she becomes a concubine or bears your bastard child matters nothing to me. I replied coldly. What exactly do you want? He demanded. A divorce, and I will take all my dowry with me. I stated plainly. Have you no thought for the children? Chuang and Song are nearly 10, and their betrothals will soon be arranged. With your reckless behavior, what respectable family will agree to marry them? Wei Xu, you are truly gifted at twisting words. You are the one who took a secret mistress. You are the one who hurt me. Did you stop to consider the children's futures when you shared her bed? Did I force you into her arms? You speak nonsense. All noble men take multiple wives and concubines. I never forbade you from taking concubines. As the master of this household, you still needed your lawful wife's consent to take a new woman into your home. Did you ever ask me? What more do you hope to achieve with this trouble? He snapped, losing his patience. My mother has fallen ill from all this. It is no wonder she is ill, having raised such a useless son. I retorted. Do not dare speak ill of my mother. He roared. You hide behind your mother yet again. I have shown her no disrespect. I speak only of you, Wei Xu. Our meeting ended in bitter silence. One by one, the entire Wei family came to reason with me. My mother-in-law arrived first, but I quickly silenced her with questions. Why had she handed the household keys to Dou Fenglan? Why had she helped the woman win over my own children? When my son and daughter came, I stood firm as their mother. If you will not stand with me and act so unfilially, we may as well sever our mother-child ties. Last of all came Dou Fenglan. Her belly was now flat. She had miscarried the child. My lady, I have lost the baby. It is all my fault for being presumptuous. Please forgive the Duke. I will return to my hometown and never appear before you again. She wept. I studied her calmly, with her oval face and almond eyes. She looked innocent and helpless, yet she was shrewd, resolute and masterful at manipulating others. Her only goal had always been to become the mistress of the Duke's mansion. I had learned the truth in my past life. She and Wei Xu had loved each other since childhood. My mother-in-law had forced her distant nephew to marry her off to another man years ago. Disgusted by her poor family background, that rejection had left a lasting grudge in Wei Xu's heart. He had cared for me too, in his own way, as the favored princess raised by the Empress Dowager. I had many suitors among the nobility, gentle and naive. I was a beauty desired by many. Wei Xu had been drawn to me, yet he had never forgotten his old love for Dou Fenglan. When he heard she was widowed, he had begged his mother to bring her back to the capital. My arrow wound had been the perfect chance for him to send me far away. Once I was gone, his mother, desperate to win back her son's affection, had taken Dou Fonlan in as an embroidery tutor for my daughter. Life as a widow had been harsh for Dou Fonlan, and she craved power and status above all else. She had returned to the capital with one aim: to marry Wei Xu, not as a concubine or a secret mistress, but as his lawful wife. Now, to salvage the situation, she had chosen to abort her own child, a choice that left her body broken and likely unable to conceive ever again. She had sacrificed everything for her ambition. I thought bitterly that if I had possessed even half her ruthlessness, I would never have met my tragic end. I will never forgive Wei Xu, I told her plainly. Dou Fonlan lifted her pale face. I beg for your forgiveness, my lady. She knelt to kowtow before me. You may smash your head on the ground, but you will gain no sympathy. This is the Shu Prince's manor, filled with my loyal servants. Even if you died here, no one would pity you. What would you have me do? She asked. I will do anything to mend this rift. Can you turn back time? She fell silent. No amount of apology can undo what has been done. I have walked the wrong path once, and now I only wish to set my life right. You think losing your child will make Wei Xu and my mother-in-law pity you more? This is nothing but a ploy to win their compassion, I said. Dou Fonlan's face twitched with shock. Your sacrifice is in vain. My mind is made up. I will have this divorce. I shook my head. To kill your own unborn child takes a cold heart. Even with my foolish children, I could never abandon them entirely. Dou Fonlan clenched her fists tightly. Save your acting for Wei Xu and grandmother. Do not waste your time here, I ordered. I sent 2 sturdy maids to escort her back to the Duke's mansion, taking care she came to no harm. Meanwhile, I paid storytellers in tea houses across the capital to spread tales of Wei Xu and Dou Fonlan's forbidden love, and of the poor, wronged lawful wife Princess Huayang, who had once risked her life to save her husband. Before long, the whole capital spoke of Wei Xu as a faithless villain. Everyone remembered how I had taken an arrow for him and spent 4 years recovering from my injuries. They praised my late father's loyalty and courage, and spoke of my beauty and generous dowry. After months of public shame, Wei Xu finally yielded and agreed to the divorce, returning every item of my dowry. The children will stay with me, he insisted. I laughed softly. Keep the 2 ungrateful children. I want nothing to do with them. Free from love and entanglement, I felt light at heart. I cared no longer for those who had never loved me. Raised as a noble princess, I had learned all the skills befitting my station, including managing wealth and property. My dowry was vast, and the old Shu Prince's estate still turned a profit. During my 4 years in the south, I had quietly invested in trade and earned even more gold. I lived a wealthy, independent life, content in my solitude. I gifted countless rare antiques, paintings and calligraphy scrolls to my cousin Princess Anning. She often invited me to her residence and sang my praises to all who would listen. The noble families of the capital were quick to curry favor with those in power. Seeing the Empress Dowager and Princess Anning still held me in high regard, they all sent invitations to their banquets, which I accepted. After the divorce, Wei Xu never married Dou Fonlan. In my past life, my death had left him with all my wealth, and the Duke's mansion had prospered. This life, their scandal had ruined Dou Fonlan's reputation. If he made her his lawful wife, no other noble family would associate with them. Wei Xu was far too selfish to take such a risk. Without the mask of gentle virtue, Dou Fonlan's greed and impatience soon showed. Wei Xu, who detested calculating women, grew to resent her more and more each day. The 2 grew to loathe one another, and the Duke's mansion became a place of constant strife. I paid them no mind. I spent most of my days in the palace, keeping the Empress Dowager company. One day, Imperial concubine Wang came to visit the Empress Dowager with her 13-year-old son, the 8th Prince. I treated everyone with distant reserve, but I was warm and affectionate toward the young prince, offering him pastries and asking after his studies. Seeing my fondness for the boy, the Empress Dowager also grew kinder to mother and son. Do you miss Chuang? The Empress Dowager asked. assuming I saw my own son in the young prince. I shook my head. I do not. Chuang is just like his father, cold and arrogant. Our mother-child bond ended the day the divorce was finalized. I simply see great wit and promise in the eighth prince. The Empress Dowager's expression turned stir. And for a moment. Huayang. Be careful with your words within the palace. Do not meddle in the struggle for the throne. I have done nothing improper. Your Majesty. I only use the pretense of missing my own son to grow acquainted with him. I ask for no favors or alliances. I assured her. I knew the future. Having wandered as a ghost for 20 years, the crown prince would soon be deposed. The third prince, who had long fought for the throne, would die of illness. Among the remaining adult princes, none had the talent to rule. The eighth prince would eventually ascend as the new crown prince. I showed simple kindness to concubine Wang and her son, seeking no political gain, only a faint bond of goodwill. For years passed quickly, just as I had foreseen. The crown prince was deposed amid noble clan conflicts, and the third prince passed away from poor health. The 17-year-old eighth prince was named the new crown prince. The position of empress had long stood vacant, and after concubine Wang's kinsman achieved great military feats, she was formally crowned empress. Having endured decades of cold court politics, the new empress cared little for most noble ladies, yet she always remembered the small kindness I had shown her and her son in their humble days, and treated me as a dear friend. My status in the capital rose higher than ever. The emperor even offered to arrange a new marriage for me, declaring that if I remarried and bore children, my heirs would inherit the Shu Prince's title and lands. I wept before the emperor and invoked my late father's memory to decline the offer firmly. It was then that my son Wei Chuang came to see me. This is an invitation to my betrothal feast, to be held next month, he said. I glanced at the invitation and replied indifferently. I cannot say if I will attend. I had no wish to set foot in the duke's mansion ever again. Wei Chuang's expression darkened. So many years have passed. Can you still not forgive us? We never harmed you. His words dragged me back to the horrors of my past life. By cruel coincidence, I had met my end on this very day. Years ago, in my past life, after I returned home and discovered Wei Xu's affair. Rage had consumed me. I had thrown the household into chaos and driven Dou Fenglan away. Wei Xu had argued that I was unreasonable for chasing off my daughter's tutor. My children had turned against me. Believing Dou Fenglan's lies, when I followed my mother-in-law to the manor where the pregnant Dou Fenglan hid, I was falsely accused of attacking my mother-in-law. I had stayed in the mansion, stubbornly refusing to divorce. Bit by bit, they wore me down. My most trusted steward was brutally killed before my eyes. My beloved puppy was stoned to death. Driven to despair, I moved to the Huaning Tower to live alone. It was here that my son came for me on this fateful day. Mother, fire, come out quickly. He had shouted from outside. Thick smoke filled the air. I rushed to open the door, only to find him blocking the entrance. I reached for him. Run, Chuang. Flee quickly. Instead, he pushed me hard. I tumbled down the tall staircase. I am soon to be betrothed. A mad mother will ruin my chances of a good marriage. Do this one last thing for your son, he had said. The fire engulfed the tower, and I burned to death at the foot of the stairs. The Empress Dowager flew into a rage at my murder, but Wei Chuang took my sister to the palace to testify against me. He showed the court self-inflicted wounds on his arms, claiming I had abused him. My daughter, weak and foolish, could only weep silently. The whole empire believed their lies. People whispered that the Mad Duchess had set herself on fire, freeing the Duke from his suffering. My own son's false testimony had sealed my fate. I had wondered for years what had driven him to such hatred. When I left the mansion, he had been only 6. I had been strict with him during his early studies, as he was lazy and easily distracted. Could a few harsh words in childhood have led him to help his father kill his own mother? Now he stood before me, claiming they had never hurt me. I had escaped my fate in this life, but they remained unchanged. I watched as their lives unfolded in the years that followed. A year after my death in the past life, Wei Xu married Dou Fenglan. She soon bore him another pair of twins. My son's marriage was delayed until he turned 20. Forced to wed a girl from a poor family, Dou Fonlan had refused to provide a generous dowry for him, blaming my ruined reputation for his misfortune. She married my daughter off to a dissolute noble's son, caring nothing for the girl's happiness, only for the political gain it brought Wei Xu. For a time, Wei Xu and Dou Fonlan enjoyed a comfortable life. Yet Wei Xu soon grew tired of her and took new lovers. He even began to praise my beauty, saying no woman in the capital could compare to me. Dou Fonlan fell ill from jealousy. She and my mother-in-law also turned on each other. Eventually, my vast dowry was squandered. Wei Xu offended powerful nobles, and Dou Fonlan made countless enemies with her scheming. The duke's title was stripped from the family. My son became a simple farmer, toiling in the fields. My daughter suffered endless abuse from her husband's family. Both of her children died young, and she herself passed away before she turned 30. On her deathbed, she had crawled to my lonely grave, clinging to the tombstone and calling out for me through her tears. I finally understand you, mother. Mother. Her remorse had torn my ghostly heart apart. In this life, I had secretly placed 2 loyal servants beside my daughter, hoping to guide her toward a good marriage. I would not force her to love me, yet I could not stop caring for the child I had born. In the 33rd year of Yongchang, my daughter Wei Song became engaged to the nephew of the new empress, a young man named Wang Xilang. Tall and sturdy, he was a skilled warrior, quiet and plain-spoken. Dou Fonlan, now only a concubine in the mansion, disapproved of the match, but Wei Xu had taken another wife after our divorcee, a sharp-tongued, fierce woman who immediately scolded Dou Fonlan. How dare you judge the empress's nephew? Your words will bring ruin to us all. My daughter found her fiancé intimidating and still kept Dou Fonlan's company. Listening to her complaints, the servants I had placed beside her reported everything to my mother-in-law. Fearing to anger the empress's family, the Wei family forbade Dou Fonlan from seeing my daughter again. Though nervous on her wedding day, my daughter found unexpected happiness. For all his rough appearance, Wang Xiling loved her deeply and was attentive to her every need. His parents respected her greatly, out of deference to me and the empress, surrounded by kindness. My daughter grew confident and sociable. She continued to visit the duke's mansion to see Dou Fonlan for a time, but after witnessing other women scheme to seduce her husband, women who acted exactly like Dou Fonlan, finally saw the truth. When she came to me one day, heavy with child, she handed me an embroidered purse she had made. Mother, did you suffer greatly back then? She asked softly. Tears slipped down my cheeks before I could stop them. It is nothing. I turned away. You risked your life for father, left your home and children for his ambitions, and this is how you were repaid. She broke down crying. The pain of a broken marriage and estranged children cut deeper than any blade. I fled to my chambers and wept uncontrollably. I resented her for stirring up old grief. Yet I could not hate her fully. After that day, my daughter cut all ties with Dou Fonlan. She sent her 1,000 taels of silver as payment for past embroidery lessons, and never spoke to her again. 2 more years passed. Wei Xu's second wife also divorced him, to curry favor with the empress and me. She and her family spread tales of Wei Xu's crimes across the capital. Wei Xu was eventually imprisoned for embezzlement. My son's marriage plans fell apart time and again, ruined by Dou Fonlan's meddling. With his father in prison, no respectable family would agree to the match. Wei Chuang came to my door once more to beg for help. I spoke openly to the public. I have no son named Wei Chuang. He belongs to Wei Xu. Enraged, he came to the Shu Prince's manor and shouted accusations, calling me cruel for destroying his future. Why did you ever give birth to me? He roared. I asked myself the same question. You will drive me to my death, and it will all be your fault, he threatened. I picked up a dagger and tossed it at his feet. Nisha cut his flesh and bones to return them to his parents. If you have any courage, use this blade here and now. Wei Chuang froze in terror, then fled in disgrace. A small part of me would have forgiven him if he had dared to act, for he was still my flesh and blood. At 20, Wei Chuang finally married a humble concubine's daughter from a minor official's household. My mother-in-law passed away soon after, and Wei Xu died in prison. Dou Fenglan, reduced to poverty, tried to return to her hometown but perished on the road. Her body was wrapped in a tattered mat and thrown into a mass grave. My son was left with nothing but a few acres of farmland, and he resigned himself to a life of plowing the fields. From time to time, my daughter secretly sent him silver. Unable to turn her back on her brother, with her help, he bought more land and settled into a quiet life as a farmer. When I turned 48, my daughter gave birth to her third child. Wei Chuang came to the full-month feast to celebrate. Now 30 years old, his skin was dark and weathered by the sun. His manner simple and honest. A man completely changed. I barely recognized him. Mother, he greeted me. I did not reply. My daughter Amon fell ill not long ago. Song told me you sent the medicine that cured her. Thank you, he said sincerely. Amon is a good child. I replied simply. She is slow-witted. Teaching her to read is harder than plowing 3 acres of land. I spoke harshly to her once, and she held a grudge for days, just as I held a grudge against you for scolding me over my studies long ago. My eyes grew damp. The mother-child bond between us was broken long ago. There is no need to speak of the past, I said firmly. He nodded in understanding. Would you let Amon stay with you for a while? She could learn from you. I knew his offer was sincere, not a scheme to send his children to live off me. He had 2 sons, yet he only offered his daughter's company. That will not be necessary. I declined. I lived alone in the vast Shu Prince's manor, wealthy and respected, content in my solitude. My daughter, now plump and prosperous after her confinement, walked over to join us. The wind drifted gently beneath the eaves as the 3 of us stood together. I had carried these 2 children in my womb, nurtured them with my blood and flesh. Once, they had turned against me, even sought my life. Now they had their own families, and we stood side by side like 3 separate trees rooted near one another, yet forever apart, and so our lives remained.